Hello everyone and welcome back to the fourth video in our series PowerShell in a nutshell. Today we are going to see how to use the pipeline and how powerful the pipeline is. That is something which is making PowerShell stand out of crowd. It makes PowerShell so powerful. If you look at the traditional command prompt where you can run commands, but when you pipe it to some other command using a pipe symbol, there is not much that you can do, because when you are running commands in traditional command prompt, you are simply getting a bunch of text as output. For example, I will give you one example of a traditional command or traditional command prompt where you run command like ping google.com. Now what you see here is just a plain bunch of text which you are getting as output. Now in order to manipulate this output using a pipe symbol, when you pipe this to any other command, it is very difficult for you to filter out unwanted stuff from this output. For example, if I ask you, I want only the IP address which I am getting as a result of this output, then it is very difficult for us to parse that output by piping it to any command in the command line using this pipe symbol. But when you deal with the PowerShell commands and PowerShell objects, this becomes very easy, because we have seen in the previous video, whenever you run a command in PowerShell, those commands are producing some kind of object, and with objects you get properties, and when you have properties you can give those property names to be shown as the column names, because whenever you run a command, for example a command like this, when you say get service, just to see your results, I will say app star. Here what you see on screen is a table. Now in this table, these are this table is showing a collection of objects, and these columns are the properties of that object. Now every single row in this table is representing a single object, and as we have discussed in our previous video, all the objects which are getting as output of a commandlet will carry the common properties. So in this case, status, name, display name, and several other properties which are currently not displayed on screen are part of the output, and those properties are common for every single object in the output. With this, let's try to understand how pipeline works. Now if I pipe this to select object, you can specify the properties that you want to select from the output. For example, I want to change the order. I want to see the name first, then display name, then status, and start type. So start type is a property which you can find out by using the get member commandlet by piping the output of this first command. Instead of piping it to select object, if you pipe it to get member, it will show you list of all the properties which are associated with this object. This we have seen in the previous video. So in this case, when you have added one more column, it has attached that column in the output. Now further, any kind of operations that you want to perform on this object, you can do that by piping it to the next command in the pipeline. For example, now I want to sort out the results based on the status. So I can say sort object based on the property name as status. Now when you don't specify anything, it will sort in ascending order. But if you want it in descending, you can simply say descending. There is no parameter called ascending because absence of descending parameter will be considered as ascending. So now you can see the results are sorted based on the status, the values which are there under the status column. Let's take another example. In this example, we will try to find out top 5 processes on this computer which are consuming the highest amount of CPU time. For that, the command to get list of processes is get process. Again, by using a pipe symbol, you can give the output or pass the output of this command to the next command in the pipeline. So here we will use sort object, and since we want the top 5 processes which are consuming highest amount of CPU time, we will give the property name as CPU, and we want that in descending manner so that we can select the top 5. Pipe it to select object, and if you want to select only top 5 rows, you can say first 5. So as you can see, it is showing me top 5 processes which are consuming highest amount of CPU time on this machine. Now if you look at this command closely, the first command has produced a bunch of objects, a collection of objects, and the output of this command has been passed to the second command, that is sort object. The sort object has performed the operation of sorting based on the CPU column in descending order, and it has produced another bunch of or another collection of objects. Those results were then passed to the next command in the pipeline. Now this final command, it has processed the select operation, and it has selected the first 5 rows from the results. And after selecting those first 5 rows, there is nothing else to do in the pipeline further, so it has converted that output into a plain text, and it has displayed that output on screen. Now till this point, there was a bunch of objects, there was a collection of objects which was flowing in the pipeline, and since you have stopped using the pipeline further, the output has been displayed on screen in form of text. So this also gives us a picture about the life cycle of the object. The object gets produced with the first command in the pipeline, and it will keep flowing in the pipeline till you keep using this pipe symbol and keep connecting further commands. Now the question here is, can I pass any kind of object to any command, or can output of any kind of command can be passed to any other command or any command as input? So when you talk about the commands like sort object, select object, where object, those commands are capable of handling any kind of input. But there are certain commands which requires only a particular type of input. For example, when you say get service, I will give the name as bits and winrm, or I will add one more, w3svc. So this will result three services and their status. Now, as we have seen how to find out what is the data type, we can pass this to getMember, and as you can see, the output type is system.serviceProcess.serviceController in this case. That means this command is producing system.serviceProcess.serviceController type of object as output. Now, if you try to pass this command, the output of this command, to say stop service, now if you check the results, all those three services are now in stop state. Similarly, if I pass the output of this command to start service, now since we want to see the results immediately after stopping or starting the service, if you want that, you can use this pass through parameter. This is a switch parameter which will allow the object to flow further in the pipeline after finishing this operation. So in this case, after you finish the operation of stopping the service or starting the service, if you give pass through, it will show you the updated status of the service immediately after performing that operation. So in this case, we will see the output, but if you look at this command, since we did not use -pass through, it did not show the output. So now all these three services are back in the running state. So how these two commands are communicating with each other in the pipeline. So in our next video, where we will talk about the pipeline in detail, the rules which are associated in the for connecting the commands in the pipeline, we will understand how two commands can communicate with each other in the pipeline. So I'm breaking this video, this fourth video, in two parts. In first part, we will just try to understand the basics of pipeline, how pipeline works, or how you can utilize the pipeline. And in the final video, I'm just intentionally keeping this in two parts so that you can understand it better. In next video, we will see the rules which are associated with the pipeline for allowing what are the rules that allows two commands to communicate with each other in the pipeline. In which cases commands can communicate, and in which cases the communication of the commands will fail in the pipeline. We will talk about those rules in the next video. Before that, let me show you a couple more examples. Now, if I want to export the list of services, so in this case, since I'm exporting, I will not filter out the results, or I will not restrict the results to few services. I will pass this to export CSV, and I can specify the path as services.csv. Now if you check to see what is the output in the services.csv file, by default it opens this type of file. If you have MS Office, it will open it in Excel. So whatever output you were supposed to get from this command, that output has been redirected to a CSV file. Now if you observe, The first line is showing you the data type, system.serviceProcess.serviceController. If you don't want to see the data type in the output, you can omit that by giving hyphen no type information in the out as the parameter, switch parameter. This time if you check, that data type will not be shown there. Now whatever you see which has been achieved so easily, that is only because of the PowerShell, the pipeline feature of PowerShell. Otherwise, if you talk about any other previous tools like VB scripting or any other scripting language using which you want to export this kind of CSV output, then it's not as easy as just piping the output of your command to a command like export CSV. You have to write the complete code for writing that CSV file. First you need to create a file system object, and in that file system object you need to keep appending the object details or all these properties which you get as part of the output, and you need to build everything from scratch. But here it is as easy as just giving two commands and connecting them using a pipeline. Similarly, if you want these results to be shown as HTML output, it is not directly as exporting to HTML. As we are exporting it to CSV, you cannot directly export it to HTML. It is a two-step process. First you have to convert to HTML, which will give you HTML source code, and there is a command called out file, which will help you save this HTML source code in a HTML file. So here you can specify the file path as srv report.html. Now take a look at this, how easy it is to convert this into HTML. Now your HTML file is ready. You can say srv report.html and it will open it with the default browser. And as you can see, it has automatically created this HTML table. If you want to format it, if you know CSS a bit, you can format this table nicely. So that's how the PowerShell pipeline works and how you can make use of pipeline for connecting commands and redirecting output even. If you have any questions, you can put those questions in the comments below, and you can subscribe to my channel for the upcoming videos. Thank you for watching.